Commissioner Nat White did actually let me know that he's sick and he's not gonna be able to make it today. But
Well,
he said in his email that he is fine with whatever we decide. So
just so you know, Nat was the oldest finisher ever of the Imogene on Saturday at the age of 84, and he was very well recognized by the Telluride community and the Imogene community. So that was really cool. And I saw him right at the start, and he was like, "I don't know if I'll make the cutoffs," and he did, and he crushed it. So
that's awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
that's great.
very, very admirable.
Okay, I think we've got quorum. If you want to start, Chair Thomas.
So Robert, do you want me to go and do roll call?
Yep, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Co-Chair Bruce Fox.
Here.
Commissioner Mary Norton.
Here.
Commissioner William Cluin. Commissioner Molly Joyce.
Here.
Commissioner Lena Wallen.
Here.
Commissioner Nat White. And Councilmember Representative David Spence. I'd like to read the land acknowledgement. The Flagstaff Open Space Commission humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home. 4 is an open call to the public. At this time, any member of the public may address the commission on any subject that is not scheduled before the commission on this day. The Arizona Open Meeting Law prohibits the commission from discussing or taking action on an item which is not listed on the prepared agenda. Commission members may, however, respond to criticism made by those addressing the commission, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be placed on a future agenda. To address the commission on an item that is on the agenda, please wait for the chair to call for public comment at the time the item is heard. Do you have any public comment?
I don't have any today. Nope. And I don't think we have anybody online from the public.
Okay. So today's meeting is to review the regional plan review and recommendations. So this is our opportunity to review the latest regional plan draft, which Commissioner Fox and I and Robert did work on last Thursday. And I think Robert's going to lead us through the final recommendations so he can share his screen. And then we also need to select commission members to represent us regarding our communication with the city council and planning and zoning about what we've sent, our letter that was sent in, knowing that these are all 3-minute comments time periods. So I think I'll just hand it over to Robert right now to share.
Thanks so much, Chair Thomas. Yeah, and thank you all of you for being here today. I know carving out an extra 2 hours is challenging. Hopefully we can work through this with some time to spare tonight. Yeah, as Commissioner Thomas was saying, we do have the final recommendation to kind of run through. I did revise it with Chair Thomas and Co-Chair Fox on Thursday, and then I did meet with Sarah Dector, who came and spoke to us at our last meeting, and she had some additional comments. So I'll run through those as quickly as I can, and any comments that you guys have, feel free to jump in at any time. And then we do need to go through the language of the presentation that whoever is appointed by the commission can utilize as a kind of an outline for discussing the recommendation, and then finalize who will speak at those different events. So are there any questions before I start tonight? Okay,
No, I
I'm gonna
just appreciate you and the chair and vice chair to work on it. Thank you.
thanks, Commissioner Wallen. Really appreciate that. I am gonna turn my camera off because I'm gonna like be looking at my notes on the other screen. So, but I'm here. So if you want to keep your camera on, that's okay. Or if you want to turn it off, that's okay as well. So, all right, here, and I'm gonna go ahead and switch my screens here. Okay, I did put together a very brief PowerPoint that's similar to the last PowerPoint that just kind of shows like what edits are in the recommendation. Is my sound okay, by the way?
Yes.
You sound
Okay,
good.
great. Thank you. Okay, so we have, I believe, 18 recommendations, and we did eliminate a couple of the oops, there's some kind of note that popped up, Lori. I'm not sure what that was. And so I'm just going to run through these and kind of give you the idea of the feedback. So this first one has to do with adding parks and open space as a complementary priority. So currently, the priorities in the regional plan are natural and cultural resources, a healthy economy, resilient public services and facilities, and a walkable mixed-use community. And the recommendation here was to add parks and open space as a fifth complementary priority. I did receive some feedback from this from our development services, and their reaction was, yes, we could do that, but they didn't recommend it. And the reason why is because when developers go through the rezoning process, they're allowed to pick two priorities. One core priority, so that being housing or climate change, and one complementary priority. And so if you add a fifth complementary priority, that enables more to choose from and might actually limit that amount um, of times that we're chosen as a secondary priority during the rezoning process. And so that's the feedback that I've gotten for this particular item. So currently, I think like our open space and parks fits underneath the natural and cultural resources category, and also the walkable and mixed community, although I realize it's not a perfect fit there. But I think we are covered in those complementary priorities. So I think the recommendation here would maybe be to cut this this is a new addition that we have had since the last time you saw this recommendation. So I'll go ahead and open it up for thoughts and comments here at this point. But let me know what you think.
Well, we talked about this as a group, or Commissioner Fox and Robert and I. And one of the important things, or maybe I don't know how important this is, but we do want to make sure that our letter or document or suggestions that were not tedious and repetitive, and we wanted to make sure that what we were submitting really was the most important stuff, that it would get the most attention. And so I guess I'm comfortable with cutting this because it does sound like it's being addressed. I know we're not the biggest fan of the language, but I think we want to make sure that what we do, that it's really, that there's a lot of strength in what we are asking for changes in, and a lot of reason behind them. And maybe there's not enough strength behind this one.
I can support this either way. I'm fine with cutting it. I'm fine with, at least bringing it up for a discussion, but I do agree with the concept of, the more concise and clean our letter and our requests are, the more likely that we are to get them adopted in at this point in the process. So, thanks.
This is Bill Cluen. I apologize for being a little late signing in.
Welcome, Commissioner. Thanks for joining us. Any other comments on this first priority? Or recommendation, rather? Commissioner Fox?
No, I think that's good. Agreed.
It makes sense. I think, yeah, definitely keeping it as simple as possible to improve any chances. I think it's fine.
Commissioner Fox?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I agree with everybody except I'll go with the consensus of the group, but I don't understand Sarah's rationale that we, by putting us more front and center, we have less chance of being selected. But that makes no sense to me. But a lot of it in this plan makes no sense to me. So, I'm fine with deleting it then.
Commissioner Norton?
Yeah, thanks. I was just curious that I did have a little note to myself about, how developers can pick a core and a complementary priority. And having walked through a couple rezones, that wasn't something that stuck out to me as the process in which they follow. And I just wondered if that comment came from Sarah or if it actually came from community development department, Michelle and Alex and such.
Yeah, thanks for the question. The only person I was able to meet with from Development Services was actually Sarah Dector. So this did come from her. Yeah.
Okay.
And then she did also state that if this is a recommendation that the commission would want to make, that she also wants to have some input on what goals and policies would need to be moved under this priority. And some of the sharing of thoughts that she had for us was to consider if we are moving goals and policies from another complementary priority, that might weaken another complementary priority. So that was some of the feedback that she shared.
It does kind of seem like it becomes a bit of a more major rewrite at this point by adding in a complementary priority and then sort of having to create, goals and policies for that priority. So that kind of makes me hesitant as to would it be adopted? Would they want to take on that amount of rewriting at this stage? And then, yeah, I just was kind of, thanks for the comment about, where that came from, unless they're reevaluating on how they measure conformance in the regional plan and, they're going to require a core priority and a complementary party, but that wasn't something that I had ever heard of that was, in effect up to this point. So those are my thoughts on it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks everybody. I will make a note here. It did seem like we did have consensus for maybe deleting this one, but if there's concern, we can come back to it at the end as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark it as a cut for the time being. The second one is to balance core priorities balance the core priorities directive. So open space integration is not deprioritized in project decisions. And this particular edit is on the page here, and it has to do with Chapter 3 and proposing a new language that is not the non-negotiable statement that the sentence currently states. So that revision would be together they make up the declared objectives that define success and serve as the key drivers to align with the vision. So the only part of that sentence would be taking the non-negotiable out and then replacing that with declared. And then it would be an addition of a sentence as well. And that's this portion. In applying core priorities, the city will co-optimize housing and climate outcomes with open space trails and community integration to deliver equitable, health-forward, balanced neighborhoods. And the why that matters is pretty much the same as before. I didn't get any specific feedback on this particular one, so I'm thinking that this one might be good to go. Sure, Norton.
Yeah, so I went and looked it up, this section up in the regional plan just to see where it fit. And there was one other sentence that's part of the verbiage as it is right now. So that last sentence, that still stays. We're still recommending that that stays, that our revision just fits in between. The last sentence in that paragraph in the regional plan right now, it says, when analysis of goals and policies is required, analysis of regional plan conformance shall address their conformance with the core priorities. So we're okay with leaving that in there. We're just tucking in our new sentence. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct how you read this recommendation. We can
Okay.
certainly adjust it.
No, I'm
As
fine
you-
with that. I just wanted to make sure we weren't,
Yeah.
you know,
And I can,
deleting their other sentence if necessary.
right. And I'm happy to clarify that in this proposed edit if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I don't know if that means like adding in some ellipses that indicate that it continues, whatever might need to be done. But I just wanted to clarify for myself. I'm fine with whatever you decide to do. Thanks.
Great. Commissioner Fox?
This is and Nat brought this up, this is a key part of this whole plan. When they use non-negotiable, and you've heard this before, Robert and Jackie, if you use non-negotiable, and I looked the words up today, it means that most of the rest of this plan we don't need. That most of the rest of the plan is superfluous if these two are non-negotiable. So I think it's really important that we state this and we keep this in and we make this as strong as we think we can go with this, because logically, if we stay with non-negotiable and we honor the words as they are as defined, then we don't need I don't know, we don't need 300 pages of this plan. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Commissioner Fox. And I wanted to point out too that in the why this matters, that there was proposed other words that could be utilized besides the non-negotiable. I did include those such as declared, balanced, primary, or important. So those are the recommendations as well.
Yeah, I agree. And those are good because then we provided them with some option, because we're in this place where the plan is so far down the line that changing anything is going to be so difficult for folks that they're not going to want to do it. So we need to be really strategic in which things we fight for.
Great. Thanks, Commissioners. Commissioner Norton.
Yeah, I'm wondering then, it's not super obvious that the word we're replacing, non-negotiable, is declared. And I'm wondering if in our the way we edit the letter, that becomes more obvious, that we're recommending non-negotiable be removed and declared be inserted in place of. And then tagging on to what Commissioner Fox was saying, that third sentence that's not part of our recommendation that we're just leaving alone, that I read. You know, the last part said, you know, should it address conformance with core priorities? Do we want to say with core and complementary priorities? Just looping that back around as a thought.
I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking, actually. I'm like, why are we just saying it's the core priorities if we're not, if complementary priorities are equally important? Because if they have to choose one core and one complementary, then they're equally important.
And I should know at this point, but are core and declared the same?
It's on that page that Robert's got covered up. He can show you in this.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Or
He's reading core priority.
core or declared? Are we saying that core priorities are the declared priorities?
The core
Yeah.
priorities are non-negotiable. That's what the
Right.
core priorities are.
Right, but then we use the word in our second sentence under edit the non-negotiable. We say declared objectives, and
That's the
lost it.
replacement.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Fox, by the way, your microphone is a little scratchy. I know when we met earlier, you had a little trouble with that too. Just give you a heads up. Chair Thomas?
Oh, that was a raised hand from earlier. But it did jump out to me that the word a core and complementary priorities should be there if they're equally weighted, which is what the response you got from Sarah indicated.
Great. So I did make an edit to the last sentence, including core and complementary priorities. Does that seem to fit with all the comments that we received?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, Robert, do you need to like highlight where we've replaced words? Like, do we need to highlight that declared was our replacement word and adding in and complementary was an addition? You know, I'm just trying to make it really easy for whoever reads this to potentially choose to adopt our change, that they
Sure.
see exactly what we're changing.
Yep. I'll go back and do that post meeting. Thanks for that comment.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and move to the next one. This is recognize the importance of the Flagstaff urban trail system within the policy section, not just transportation, and required to be thoughtfully located through new developments. So we did discuss this with Sarah at our last meeting, and she gave us a little bit of advice as far as maybe making a comment in chapter 4 instead of having an entire new policy. So in the draft that I sent back to you, I actually made the suggestion that we delete this particular new policy. We got some feedback from the commission that said, no, it's really important that we have a new policy that speaks to this. And so I put it back in here in this last section. So my note here is that in number 14, we may cover this recommendation. Do we want to keep both? Is it important to have both? And if we keep both this one and number 14, would it be better to include this in another location? That was a question that I did get back from Development Services, was why are we making a recommendation here for the development pattern goal and not in the transportation section? So let me switch over to that PowerPoint here that I had up here a second ago. So they're wondering if it would make less sense putting in the DP development pattern and more sense in the MT section. So I'll scroll down to section number 14, just to kind of give you an idea. We'll get to this later, but maybe we can just check it off the list now. So this is the comment for number 14. Recognize the importance of Flagstaff urban trail system and other trails within chapter 4, growth and land use, and required to be thoughtfully located through new development. And this is a proposed sentence addition. Trail design and alignment should integrate natural experiences that can interconnect neighborhoods and increases safe, low carbon access to community infrastructure. And this is within, let me switch to the, let's see here. This would be an additional sentence located after, in this paragraph, after the active transportation plan. So located here at the end here.
So I've been thinking about this a lot, these two things. And I just went for a walk in Buffalo Park with my dog. And I think the number is 30,000 visitors a month to Buffalo Park. Is that right? I think it's 30. It's a huge number. And without any specific park or open access space on that entire south side of town, that means everybody's going to jump in their car to drive to the north side of the tracks to get to open space if we haven't designated the access to the Forest Service or community infrastructure there. Currently we don't have any plans for that. So I think this is a really important topic. I just don't know which location is more important. But that's the thing that was going through my mind, is like, well, if we're really talking about reduced carbon footprints, and that's one of the core priorities, then why are we not making a plan that's going to, currently there's not a plan to really reduce people from driving across town to get to the current open spaces. So I don't know if this could be any stronger and say trail design and alignment should integrate national experiences that connects neighborhoods and increases safe, low carbon access to surrounding community infrastructure, or to the Forest Service, or to open space, or even more specific, because it's not addressed in this whole plan.
Commissioner Norton?
Yeah, after sitting through a few of these meetings on the development of the regional plan, it's like we always heard that chapters 3 and 4 are the meat of it. I mean, everything lies in chapter 3 and 4. Chapter 3 being goals and policies, chapter 4, being growth and land use, and the map being the important part of that chapter primarily. And I really think it's apples and oranges with what we're asking. I think we're asking for, the foots to be mentioned in the goals and policies with something specific to that. And then we just asked for a little bit of a clarification in chapter 4, where we did get mention of it. So I'm in favor of keeping both of them, and I think they serve different purposes. Thanks.
Commissioner Wallen?
Well, I think I'm the one who really proposed before. To me, it's really interconnect, and the planning more in terms of new development for that is very important. And I agree with the Commissioner Norton. It might be put in a both place, so we make really emphasis on that, really important. But if we need to really have it, trim it. So I rather put it in the chapter 3.
Thanks, Commissioner Wallen. And
this is Bill. I'd support it in both places. I think 14 is critical to have it there. I guess you could argue whether, did you ever get any feedback in 3 whether or not foots is considered a policy? What's the difference between the policy and implementation of some action item? So
there is MT5, which does have a mention of the Flagstaff Urban Trail about increase the accessibility, connectivity, and the use of pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure including the Flagstaff urban trail system and other systems, as a critical element of safe and livable community to promote transit access. So there is some language in there. I think that this is the only policy that actually mentions the foots. And I think that the feedback that we got back from development services is maybe that this new policy recommendation might better fit under multimodal transportation. But yeah, certainly.
Well, I guess if foots is there, what about just adding besides access? Add something there about, you know, the walkability and quality of life or something. I'd support it in both places, I guess, in the bottom line. So I don't want to argue too much in the other direction, but I'm just throwing out there whether or not you could put it in 5 as an addition.
Yeah, that's a good thought, and I think we did actually consider that, but the way that the design and alignment through new developments, the language was a little tricky to figure out how to include it in MT5 since it's about connectivity. But if you have a suggestion, I'd be happy to make that change.
No, well, actually, I don't in this right now, but so I'd suggest going with both, or I'd support going with both if that's what people want.
Good. I'm not sure who's next. Commissioner Thomas, you next?
Oh, no, I think that just got left up there. Sorry.
Commissioner Joyce?
Just a thought with language of section 5, could it, instead of saying actually I forget what the word is that it says increase the accessibility and connectivity, perhaps that first word could just be changed to prioritize, and then that puts a higher emphasis on that particular piece, like prioritize accessibility, connectivity, and use of pedestrian bicycling infrastructure.
Does everybody feel like this change meets the goal that this first edit was trying to accomplish? Do we have any opposed to just making an edit to MT5? Commissioner Norton?
Yeah, I'll just say I still support having the representation in both chapters. Thanks. But I'll go with the group.
Okay, I think that the two questions are that I need feedback on is do we want it in development in the DP, or do we want it in the multimodal transportation? Is there a preference there? What's the value of having it in one over the other? Does anybody have any feedback on that?
I think
We need-
I agree with Commissioner Norton. Put it in both. Again, in terms of emphasizing that this is really important. So I know that's redundant, but have it both is my vote.
Thanks for that comment. Yeah, and just so you know, one of the points that we did get feedback on from development services is that they're trying to eliminate as much duality as possible in the new regional plan. So I think that that will be a comment that they will share with Planning and Zoning and City Council if this particular item goes forward. Just to throw it out there. So Commissioner Fox?
I think we should put it in both places because development services doesn't like it, doesn't in two places doesn't mean we shouldn't put it in two places.
Okay, so I'm just going to read this definition for multimodal transportation. The region promotes a variety of affordable and accessible transportation modes to reduce reliance on single occupancy vehicles, reduce transportation costs for residents, and provide safe and convenient transportation options. And then I'm just going to go back to DP real quick. Oops. Oh, sorry, wrong way. And then development pattern is the region promotes development patterns that support attainable housing in a resilient and sustainable community. Commissioner Norton?
So if I had to choose, I would put it in 3. I think having it be part of development pattern goals, um, I think speaks to more of what we're looking for. I think maybe our point in number 14 is perhaps covered sufficiently in MT5. So I think that would be my preference if I had to choose. Thanks.
Clune?
Yeah, I guess at our first meeting, after the first meeting, we were going to make these next level of comments. I was wondering if we were better off to try to cut things down and give our like top 10 or something. Since then, I've changed my mind. We've had all these meetings and this has been a thoughtful process. And if we think 18 is the right number, I don't think we should necessarily negotiate against ourselves in this meeting. So I've kind of gone there about not cutting back as much as I might otherwise. So I guess I'd stick to the position that put it in both places.
Great, thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Thomas?
I liked the idea of changing the language in the top one that says prioritize, and that would address the 14 concern, number 14 concern. Or then I guess the one you got there, I don't know what number that, yeah, that one there. But I also, and I think having it here too is important. I mean, is it up to us to decide which one they don't want to put in there? I kind of feel like they're going to pick and choose what they want to put in, right, Mary?
Yes. I mean, how the process works itself when it gets down to, the nitty-gritty of what stays and what doesn't get adopted in, if even if any of our comments get adopted, let's say it gets brought to the forefront and gets discussed either with planning and zoning or with city council, and how they'll go about handling all of the comments that have been elevated to the parking lot for discussion. Not, I'm not sure what that'll look like.
Okay, well, oh, Commissioner Fox, go ahead.
3, our point 3 and was it 14 really do address 2 different issues. So I think we need to put them both in. 3 really addresses, in the language we're proposing, really addresses the idea that yes, we need to include and prioritize the existence of trails and FUTS trails in development. In 14, we provide some guidance on what kind of inclusion or what some of the characteristics of inclusion are. So, and in the MT policies are more implementation, as Bill had mentioned, and 3 is a policy. So for that, I think we should keep them both.
Thanks, everyone. So I just wanted to make sure I captured the feedback correctly. We want to keep this comment as DP 8 because it has to do more with development and design rather than multimodal transportation. That's the first one. Number 2, we want to keep 14 also, even though it talks about the same item, but we want to include it in 2 different locations. And the third one was we want to add a new recommendation to change MT.5 by changing the word increase to prioritize. Did I get that all right?
Yes, I think
Okay.
so.
All right, sounds good. Let's move on. Okay, this next one here is, let's see here. Okay. Let me switch over here. This is about updating the walking access standard, a policy target in PROS 1. So provide parks and complementary open spaces within a quarter to a third mile walk of all residents, prioritizing underserved areas of the region to support livable, sustainable, compact development and climate resilience. Let's see here. I'm sorry. Yeah, so the Ms. Surdector, she had a comment that it would be better to change it to the quarter to a third mile. The region plan uses this reference in other locations. I went ahead and just made that change. Commissioner Fox?
Sorry. Yeah, I think we should go ahead. Implementation is a lot easier to map this in terms of distance and rather than in terms of time. And I think we accomplish what we want to accomplish by moving into the distance measure.
Thanks. Commissioner Norton?
Yeah, I support this change. I just was wondering, will this be meaning that we are working our way to our own new definition that we'll use in our PROS documents from here forward instead of the 10-minute walking? That will we carry this through and use the, quarter to a third mile in the future ourselves?
Yeah, I think that probably would be something that we'd want to address in the master plan. The regional plan actually does have some language in about 10-minute access as well, as you can see by the examples I threw up there. And on 4.16, when it talks about urban center, it talks about the quarter to a third mile. On the 4-18, the suburban center, it talks about that same length. On 4-26, though, it does say design walking and biking improvements to achieve access of 10 minutes or less. And then a little further down on that same page, it also references the 10-minute walking access time. So, and the point here of me listing these is also that Development Services did point out that this is something that we address in other locations of the plan. And do we really need to address it in this policy? I might actually, if it's okay, asking staff if they have any comments about the quarter to a third length, if it makes a difference between that and the 10-minute access walking time that I know that is our national standard that we typically use. Staff, any comments on that?
Hey, Robert. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
You're on mute, Mary.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. I just raised my hand to go after you. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Amy Hagan, Assistant Parks and Recreation Director. I haven't provided much thought to this because I think the two can be distinctly defined. Honestly, when you talk about in general terms of a 10-minute walking access versus a quarter to a third mile. To me, the third mile becomes more restrictive, I think, where the 10-minute walking access is possibly an easier term for all modes of transportation to understand. So I am I would personally shy away from this quarter to third mile terminology.
Thanks, Commissioner Norton.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting comment, and it's like, do we need to be consistent everywhere? Or, even if we did adopt it as the quarter to a third mile, obviously there's those two other points that you made in the margin, Robert, about there still being a reference to 10-minute. That's just a comment on that. But my comment was, what I really rose my hand for was, again, we're asking for something to have representation both in chapter 3 as goals and policy, as well as, yes, acknowledging that it is mentioned in chapter 4, growth and land use. And I think if there was ever a policy that we are trying to implement and, be a guiding policy within our pros, as well as hoping that it's in part of the regional plan, it would be this, whether 10-minute or quarter to a third mile access to parks and open space. So I think having it in chapter 3 in goals and policy is an ideal place for it to be. And again, I'm not worried about the duplicate messaging between those two chapters because they really do act differently when they're in use for who's ever using the regional plan. Thanks.
Great, thanks, commissioners. So we'll go ahead and keep this one in based on the feedback, and I'll go ahead and move the language back to the 10-minute if we need that additional flexibility. I think that was a good bit of feedback as well from Amy. So thanks. Okay, this next one, this is clarifying map 3.1 and related text to avoid the impression that one location needs open space. This is a item I believe that we had agreed on at our last meeting. There was a comment from Development Services about potentially moving this to the brown box rather than having it be written on the map. Let's see here. So our suggestion was to add a disclaimer on this map here. And given the amount of space and the content that's already on the map, the suggestion was to move it to the brown box, which is, I forget which page that is, but I can switch to it. Commissioner Norton, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not so much opposed to putting a little disclaimer on the map, although I do think we need to have it on the map. I'm definitely opposed to having it put into the brown box because the brown box on that page, I thought, and maybe I was looking at the wrong brown box. I thought that was the sense of place box. So maybe now that you pulled up that brown box, that wasn't the one that had read. And the one that you did pull up, I hate that brown box because it's so full of legalese. I would certainly not want one more item added to that brown box. That's just my thoughts. Thanks.
Any other
Yeah, and I thought the messaging, the messaging in this brown box, though, I thought was about not dedicating, making sure that there's a distinction between the dedication of something called open space versus something that's not open space and is just held as open space by a different part of the department. So I don't see how. I think adding something to the map that clarifies that not only one location needs open space is important, or a note on the bottom of the map would be much more clear than putting it into this.
Great, thanks, commissioners. Any other comments on this? Okay, we'll go ahead and keep this as it is, unless you have any other feedback. The next one is about adjusting policy pros 4. This is a new addition. It updated. It currently says events through interagency coordination and local trail partnerships. What the addition was to add the agencies that we typically work with: Forest Service, Land Department, National Park Service, Coconino County. I think this is a good recommendation at start, but the feedback that we've gotten is that this could really limit the interagency partners that we partner with, and is it really necessary to spell it out? And so this particular item, I'd recommend cutting. Yeah, Commissioner White had some specific feedback for this particular one, but he was unable to join us today. But is there any thoughts or points that the commission wants to make on this?
Can I raise that?
I mean, I thought when we talked about this that we were trying to highlight for developers who our interagency collaborators are. I mean, who are we missing? Some nonprofits or something?
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Thomas. And that was, I think, the intent of this recommendation. I think the feedback that we received is that staff are there to walk developers through this process, and that they'll be able to speak to like who those partners will be. You know, for instance, the United States Fish and Wildlife could be one of those partners that we didn't name in this interagency coordination. And, you know, it was pointed out that, you know, sometimes names change as well. Commissioner Norton?
Maybe we just need to add, for example, U.S. Forest Service, so that we're stating that it's not inclusive of everybody that might be partnered with these efforts. But having said that, I could go either way. I think this is helpful for anybody that reads the regional plan to understand who we're talking about. But I don't know that it's absolutely necessary. So I'd also be okay if we decided to cut it. Thanks.
I think just as such as could cure it, because Arizona Game and Fish isn't mentioned, Grand Canyon Trust. I think other ones could come up, but so I think as such as could cure it. But I guess if you eliminated it, it wouldn't be fatal either.
Okay, we got 2 votes for either way. Anybody else want to weigh in? Commissioner Fox?
The such as works for me, and whatever the consensus of the group, I don't feel strongly either way on this one.
I agree with that, because in such as really, because that the most agencies that we work with and could have it in other agencies in terms of local trail partnerships that include other agencies.
Mr. Thomas?
I guess I could, in the light of trying to have a clean and concise letter, we might want to take this out. I guess my only concern is that when I think Commissioner White asked Sarah if they had consulted with the Forest Service about trail access, she was like, no, we haven't even talked to them at all. So I guess, I just want to make sure that that does happen.
Thanks. Commissioner Joyce?
I feel like I could go either way on this, but if we do leave, because I think to a degree it is good to leave the named agencies in the document, but could we not just add something like, for example, or including but not limited to U.S. Forest Service, State Land Department, so on and so forth. That way it kind of covers all the bases.
Sounds good. Thanks, commissioners. Yeah, I think that what I heard was keeping it in there, but adding some kind of clarifying message like that. So we'll go ahead and keep this. I do think like if we are looking for a place to cut and minimize the recommendation, this would be an easy place to probably do it. But I'm happy to keep it in there for now. Anything else, Commissioner Thomas?
No, I forgot to take it down.
All right, let's see where we're at here. Okay, this is about reframing policy OS2. We didn't get any comments on this. I think we're good to go on this. I'll change this back to 10-minute access walking time. Any questions about that one? Okay, and then this is about fixing the policy map designation to acknowledge trail continuity and identify the top priority connection. This has to do with our Hoffman-Tain corridor. So that area between the Rio de Flag Water Reclamation Plant and the Forest Service, and making that connection. The commission a number of years ago identified this as a top priority area for connecting down to public lands, since there's no legal access across the private properties there. And along that corridor, there are two suburban centers identified on the regional. That's these kind of brown areas that you see here. So just wondering if we want to keep a comment in about this or not. The brown is not necessarily incompatible with a greenway. We can't show greenways on the regional plan or new open space across private properties because of the restrictions that involves. But the feedback that I got is that, having a greenway and also having a suburban center aren't necessarily incompatible. Also, the one in the north here, when I looked into it, it is out of the floodway, so it is out of the major part of the corridor that the commission has identified, whereas the one in the south here is actually kind of more down along the drainage area or down in the lowland area. So it would be more through like the corridor that the commission has identified. Commissioner Thomas?
Robert, I went back and listened to the June 25th presentation to the city council by Sarah, and, explaining sort of like what she explained to us, but she was explaining it to them. And the developers kept coming in, their comments were, and they made public comments that, they wanted to have an opportunities for less densely populated development because of the ruggedness and the slope aspect and the restrictions of the natural resources that wouldn't allow development. And so in my mind, I'm really puzzled as to why, if you're telling, if this is to put the most suburban development in the most rugged topography, because that is where a drainage basin would naturally capture water. Like, is this a place that, I don't know how to solve this problem here, but that was like, they kept saying like, well, we want to have less, we want to be able to only build 2 houses per acre, not 5, because of all these restrictions due to topography. But then this is talking about having the most densely suburban development in the most topographically diverse area, because that's the area that we asked to have excluded. So I think that's why this really matters. I just don't know if at this late in the game, saying that we want to correct the 2 zoning designations is really going to resonate. I don't know how, I'm really concerned that this is already a done deal.
Thanks, Commissioner Thomas. Yeah, I do believe that they did get private property owners that weighed in for this designation that you see on the map. Just a reminder, the corridor that the commission has been talking about needing is along the Rio de Flag here. So that comes through several private property owners, which has its own complications, but it comes from the Rio de Flag pump station where the I-40 wetlands is, and the Rio de Flag kind of curves down here, and then it goes to the east here, but the corridor would actually be through the private property to the south into the Forest Service. So it actually comes out of the Rio de Flag drainage area for a while and comes through that section to connect to the Flagstaff Loop Trail. Commissioner Norton.
Yeah, in looking at this, we were kind of showing some opposition to both of those designations, and I really thought about this again, and I went back and I looked at the map, the land use map as it is right now on Regional Plan 2030, and like what changes. And we had more designations as far as trails and arterial road connectivity and all that through these properties on the existing regional plan. And all these large property owners have absolutely over and over advocated for to sort of have some of the guardrails removed so they can develop their properties as they see fit, and they don't want to be constrained by density increases or us outlining where trails or roads should be, which we'll get to, I think, on some of our other points as well. And that over and over to me has been the elephant in the room every time I sit in these meetings when the developer representatives come and speak during public comment about this. And I feel that like open spaces has been a bit slighted in the process because the Hoffman tank and that drainage area has been like the number one priority for preservation and open space, etc. I also am concerned that that southern suburban center is right next to the county island for like the Harold Ranch Road people, which is a rural neighborhood. And I know that's not what they bargained for. I mean, they're already upset that JW Powell is going to go right next to River Road. So, I think it's a disservice to them. I think it's a disservice to open spaces. Um, and perhaps, the idea was that area, was going to connect to the NAU parcel that was owned down there. NAU has since just a few months ago sold that property. And so I think if we really want to emphasize what we think is most important, I think it's having that suburban center removed off of that southern section where it's near Hoffman Tank. I think that's worth fighting for. I'd be okay with dropping the removal of the other one, because I would imagine in those larger parcels, it would make sense to have some sort of a suburban center and arterial roads that goes through those properties. I just don't know that we want a suburban center down in that lower section that we've been talking about for a while. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner Norton. Mr. Thomas?
That was a mistake. I mean, I think this is absolutely critical, and one of the, we can talk, we have 3 minutes to speak, and I think this is one of the 3 items we should talk about. Just after listening to some of the other planning meetings or the presentations, I mean, I don't know if we should be making a recommendation that they put it somewhere else. I mean, I don't know if that would help. How can we be most successful with this besides saying, hey, we've been saying for a really long time that this is important open space, and we have the support of our sister agency, Game and Fish, or our partners. How do we most successfully get this one, highlighted besides actually speaking about it at a public meeting? Do we provide an alternative location, which, we can't because we're not planning and zoning. I don't know what the criteria are, but I think this one's really important to keep in here. Thank you.
Thanks, commissioners. Any feedback on including just the southern one as opposed to both of them? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and keep that as just the southern one and keep the northern one since it's kind of out of the main part of the corridor. All right, move to the next one here. Okay, this is remove parcels over 400 acres. There was a question from the commission about what is planned trails on private land with no property rights means. It just means that there's no legal access. We don't recommend any changes in the language, and I think that this was pretty clear direction from last time, so we're okay with leaving this one in there, unless anybody wants to speak up. The next one is about reframing the map disclaimer to ensure trails are incorporated into the design. This has to do with some of the comments that we've made kind of reoccurring. There's currently a disclaimer in the map that says planned trails on private. Oops, sorry, that's the last one. There's a little disclaimer at the bottom here, and that would be to revise that sentence to future trail lines are conceptual and will be aligned through developments to meet the system connectivity, enhance user experience, maintain natural corridors, and support neighborhood livability. So I think there was some concern from development services that maybe this disclaimer was really hammered out by our legal department, and that changing it at this point might be pretty challenging. But I think, like, as far as the feedback that we got back from the commission last time, that this should remain in here. Any questions or comments on this one?
We should leave it in and note that we have this concern. If legal has already worked on it, they can tell us that. But just because legal might think that there might be a problem doesn't mean we shouldn't bring it up.
Thanks, Commissioner Fox. Right, the next one is add missing existing trail right-of-way access. So there is a trail connection that we've identified in the Observatory Mesa Trail Plan that provides connection from Lower Coconino here. We do have an easement for this from Fimbres, and are working on the Flagstaff Mesa HOA easement, but it's identified in our city's trail plans. So this was a new addition, by the way. So any thoughts or comments on this one? Let's see. Oh, and there was a small change that it should be changed to map 4-6, which is the one that you see. That's not 4-6. No, I'm sorry, this is the wrong map that I'm showing. Should be changed to 4-6, not the. Okay. Oh, sorry, Mr. Thomas, go ahead.
Well, this is Bruce. Just go for it.
Go for it.
It's fine with me.
Good.
I just had a question. So is this something that we just discovered, or a commissioner just discovered was missing from the trail plan? I was not as clear on this one, and I just wanted to understand, I guess. And is it present someplace else? I mean, how do we make sure it gets implemented?
This is a new discovery from Commissioner White. Sorry, it's in reference to this trail map, actually. So on 4-38. And this is based on the regional trails map from Flagstaff Trail Initiative. It's this location right here. And yeah, so that was just identified that maybe that needs to be included in the map.
I see. Thank you.
Honestly, I don't think that this would limit us from like continuing to work on that trail connection to Observatory Mesa, whether it's on the map or not. But if we wanted to try to provide that recommendation, we could certainly do so. Martin might be able to comment on that. If you have a staff comment, Martin, feel free to jump in.
I would just add that the trail is shown in the active transportation master plan. So it is mapped somewhere else, but not in the regional plan.
Thank you, Martin. Okay. Any thumbs up and thumbs down about keeping or cutting this one?
Keep it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, keep it.
Okay. Okay, this next one is about adding the access points to the trail maps. This is the map 26E from the current regional plan. I think there was consensus about including that on the current map or including a new map. So that's what this recommendation entails. Oh, and there was one question is, do we want existing and future trail access points or just future? And I think currently our maps show existing and future.
I think existing and plan, that's really good wording comparing to the future access.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner Waller. Right. The next one is the bike policy plan. This would be to add a disclaimer on the map that new future arterial and collector roads are not in the regional plan will be incorporated into the bike network. So the regional plan is required to show all roads. So there were some questions about what we really meant by this one. And what I was able to discern was that if any new roads were planned, that then they should be considered for bikeways. So planning does this already, so it might not be necessary to do this, but that is where the comment originated from. I think that we could likely cut this one and still be successful with all new roads that aren't currently in the regional plan or being considered for a bikeway. And
Why wouldn't future be new already? I guess I'm not sure what the new is adding.
well, I think the current regional plan maps out all new planned roads. If the regional plan missed like a new road that would go in for a development, I think the suggestion is that that should be considered for a bikeway. But I think that our staff in development services would move that forward for consideration. So, and maybe I can lean on Martin Ince again for helping me to explain this. Thanks for coming, by the way, Martin.
Well, you're welcome, Robert. Yeah, so there are really maybe two questions. One is when not all there may be roads that are built as part of future development that aren't necessarily on the regional plan. Specifically, minor collectors are not always mapped on the regional plan. And whenever new roads come in that are greater than local, collector level or arterial, we need to make sure that they have decent bike facilities and that they are incorporated into our bikeway network. So we know what is it a primary route? Is it a secondary route? How does it function within that network? I think the first question, what type of facility will it have, really needs to be answered by the engineering standards. And then the second one, I think we could probably do, we sort of designate what our bikeway network looks like. If the development comes in as part of specific plan, for example, we could plan that cooperatively with the developer and make sure that it's part of our system. I don't know if that helps or not.
Thanks, Martin.
Let me offer this up as a quick edit. Take out new and put in all. And then take out the that are not in the regional plan. So we say that all future arterial and collector roads will be incorporated into the bikeway network. Who cares if they're in the plan now or not? All of them will be.
Martin, can you speak to that comment that Commissioner Fox had? I feel like not all new roads are part of the bikeway network. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Generally, if they're collector level or arterial level, they would be part of the bikeway network. We would make them part of it. Most local roads would not be.
Okay.
Great, thanks. Any other comments on this one? Does that change what you're looking for?
Works for me.
Okay. All right, thanks everyone. This one here is recognizing the importance of foots. We kind of already discussed this one to keep it in. Here. I just updated it to include other trails, and some of them are single track. And this next one here, number 14, is make integration as important as access in the neighborhood policy. And we did get some feedback on this one. There is particularly questions. This is where it would be changed. There was particularly questions about what does a developer have to do to show integration? What is like the standard that folks have to meet? So there were some questions kind of around that. Hold on just a second here. I'm going to read through my comment here. It's been a while since I've looked at this. So this proposed edit was initially in the page above this. So let me go to the regional plan. So okay. So right here, this sentence that as the community grows, the need for sorry. Here it is. Parks and open space access is essential to safe and livable neighborhoods. And I think the original recommendation was to add not that it's just access, but it's also integration. And just so you know, this is in like the background section of this particular chapter. So the original comment was to change this sentence to include recommendation. The new comment was, does it really fit there? Because that's just like introductory background information. Would it be better to put this down here where it says future parks and open space? And this sentence here has, as the community grows, the need for new parks, designated open spaces, and accessible and inclusive recreation and event venues is an essential consideration. And the proposed edit could be something like future open space and parks should be placed through developments to meet system connectivity, are accessible for residents, maintain natural corridors, and support neighborhood livability. So wondering, one, if we need to update like this sentence or include a new sentence, and if this would be the appropriate location to do so on page 8-3. Hope that was at least somewhat clear. So.
Can you go back up to 8-2 where we initially proposed it should be?
Yeah, so if we go to the top, you'll see that we're in the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space background information. And the original comment was to change this sentence here. Parks and open space access and integration is essential to safe and livable neighborhoods. And The question from development services was, well, what is integration? Like, how do we communicate like what integration means to a developer? Does that mean like, what exactly does that mean? And then the second part of that question is like, okay, is this the appropriate location for it in the background information? Or should it be down here in this location where it's talking about future parks and open space?
Okay, thank you for that. So I would be in favor of moving it down to future parks and open space with the suggested edit that you have in the margin that specifies, future open spaces and parks should be placed through developments to meet system connectivity, are accessible for residents, maintain natural corridors, and support neighborhood livability. I think that is a really strong and clear statement of what we're looking for.
Thank you for that comment. And would that be a completely new sentence? Would it be after this first sentence? I'm unclear where we would fit that
Yeah, I
in.
don't know where you intended or where you were suggesting that should be. I just thought that the sentence was really well stated and written.
Yeah.
And I support putting it into the future parks and open space section someplace. But I haven't looked at like where or tried to figure out where you thought maybe it might go. So I'll defer that to you.
Okay. Any other comments about the location of where that sentence should go? I could just read, as the community grows and needs new parks, designated open spaces, and accessible and inclusive recreation and venues, and event venues is an essential consideration. Future open space and parks should be placed through developments to meet system connectivity, are accessible for residents, maintain natural corridors, and support neighborhood livability. The county completed, and then it goes into like kind of a new idea about the county completing their their master plan.
It
Yeah,
almost seems like it needs to be, that was kind of like an introductory statement, the first sentence as written, and then adding in your sentence, or if it's a replacement of, that's fine. But then it almost seems like once they start talking about the county, maybe that should have been a paragraph break. But
Yeah, okay.
not sure about the
No.
formatting of how it would fit.
I'm not sure you could add it to that first sentence because it seems every one of those terms is defined somewhere else. And if you just try to stick in integrated or integration, it's going to it'd be an undefined term. So I think if you wanted to talk about it there, it would require an additional sentence. Because I don't think it's defined, and they were real big on having everything you could click on and get a definition. I'm thinking accessible up there simply means handicapped accessible, but I'm not able to click on that sitting here looking at it.
Okay.
What about just adding the word integrated or whatever word we're using now, and make it a hyperlink and use that sentence that you crafted, Robert, as the information linked to the that's in the hyperlink.
I'm gonna loop back around and maybe clarify, like the proposed edit that we had right now. I was in favor of dropping that sentence and using the sentence that Robert has in the margin under his comments in place of, and that way we don't have to deal with the word integration. So just to clarify where I was going with that.
Yeah, I think we could do that. We would cut out the important language, I think, about event venues, which I think is like an important consideration for pros. So if we were going to recommend dropping the first sentence, I think that might be important for us to include event venues in that sentence somehow.
What if that first sentence stayed and we just added in your your sentence, the margin sentence that you suggested as the second sentence,
Okay.
and then potentially offered up a paragraph break if we felt it was necessary, if it didn't segue smoothly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I support that.
Okay.
Fine with me.
Thanks,
Does
everybody.
that mean that starting with the county completed and such, that's in different paragraph?
Yeah, I think that's what the recommendation would be, to drop that sentence down to a new paragraph.
I think that's really strong. I agree with that.
Okay, great. Great. Thanks for letting me bounce that idea off you. This one was about the action items. I think that we didn't get any discussion on this, so I think we're set to go with that one. Let's see here. That's these ones. And then mapping stands of ponderosa pine. So we did get some feedback on this. I was reminded that during the 60-day review, there was some language actually in the regional plan that said complete a community tree inventory and create an urban forest strategy that includes updated practices for trees and landscaping, et cetera, et cetera. The recommendation was like, let's make it really clear what we want. And I think that is just to complete a community tree inventory and create an urban forest strategy. Is that what the main point that we were trying to get to initially? Commissioner Norton.
So this is where I was a little confused. I was wondering if we were getting away from our initial intention, like a community tree inventory. That led me down the path of like all of the parkway trees, the things that have been planted, the things that have been become part of created landscaping. Whereas I think we were asking for is, those older stands of ponderosa pines in our natural environment. So I kind of thought that asking for just a community tree inventory got away from that initial intention. And I think creating an urban forestry strategy, isn't that part of all of the fire strategies that they already have on file? The urban interface, all of that, isn't that somewhat covered in other documents that they use for, the fire department and the city itself? Is my question.
Yeah, thanks for that comment and question. And I'm not sure if I can actually honestly answer it fully. I know that we looked into applying for some grant funding for a tree master plan, which would have mapped like trees not only like on city property, but also like within neighborhoods for the importance of like shade and things like that. So I think like an urban forest strategy could actually include something more comprehensive that you're kind of speaking to, Commissioner Norton. But I do think it's important that the proposed action be very clear. So if it's not captured in that sentence, I think it probably needs to be revised.
I don't think it's captured in that sentence. I mean, I thought we talked about like what Commissioner Norton said, which is specifically trees that should be protected, or, because of their contribution to our community, versus incorporating them into spaces of consideration of equity, hazard mitigation, carbon sequestration.
Yeah, so the recommendation that the verbiage change that Commissioner White added was like, okay, if it's hard to understand like how to map them, then maybe we should provide and add an action to map approximate bubbles of significant ponderosa pines as a short-term action to be added to the significant resource map under the mapped resources section. So the feedback that I got from development services, it's confusing and it doesn't speak to exactly what we desire. So maybe if there's just some way to revise that so it's a little bit clearer. And the advice that we received would be to update an action item here on this particular page in chapter 8. So if we could list a new action item of what it is that we want the city to accomplish, that might be cleaner. Commissioner Wallen?
How if we change in terms of a community tree, that's change it to Ponderosa Pine Infantry, which means that's really including in community and also including in the city-owned and other. Because I think that's really important also, not only the one that in the future development, but also with how really the livable community will be.
I think just trying to pull out Ponderosa Pine on its own will be could be inefficient and not really capture what we want. But I think the idea of having a community tree inventory is really important. So we have a comprehensive look of what that important resource looks like. And if we could phrase it with something about with an initial focus on large ponderosa pine, then we're saying, yeah, do this whole thing. But first part of this is get those big trees, and this is why.
Okay.
I feel like when we talked to Sarah, she gave us a reason why this wasn't maybe I can find it. I think she was like, if you identify only the ponderosa pine trees as being important, then we're not going to consider everything else.
I think
Right. And we're not. Go ahead, Robert.
I think the feedback that we've got back from development services is that it's a very large undertaking and that we don't have the data currently. I think that that's the main point that I've heard. The main point I've heard from the commission is that we have the capability of mapping, if maybe not immediately right now for the regional plan, that they should be identified as an action for the future to support city decisions.
Right. Just because it's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And
Well,
I would go ahead, Jackie.
I mean, you can use LiDAR to get the tallest trees. It's,
Right. And
I mean,
airborne and
they're saying that going out and doing an inventory by individual tree and getting the exact circumference is going to take up staff power time, but there are ways to do it.
agreed.
Commissioner Norton?
Yeah, and that's why I was puzzled by the pushback that we got about why this wasn't a feasible request for an action item, because for one, I mean, regional plan is going to be, it's for 15 years out. It's going to be in effect for 10 before they start talking about rewriting for the next one. And that was part of this sort of the selling point on the pilot program for the resource protection overlay, where it becomes more of a subjective evaluation of sites as far as which tree resources get saved. And the selling point was, well, we have all this new data, we have LiDAR, we have information. So it's there, it's, it's not, maybe not available on all the land in the city, obviously, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to become available or that we shouldn't try to work toward that of having a mapping of our large stand of ponderosa pines. So to me, it seemed like a very complimentary thing to ask as an action item because it really fell into place with actually what they're trying to do with revising the resource protection overlay. So I'm in favor of continuing to ask for this specifically with regard, mentioning the ponderosa pines because they are one of our natural resources here, and they get mentioned, in these community meetings as worthy of paying attention to. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner Norton.
I-
So
I-
we've got a
Well, I got one comment though. When they develop these new trails on Eldon and stuff, there's a lot of incredible alligator juniper up there. So I wouldn't want to focus just on ponderosa pines. And what about instead of complete, just say develop a comprehensive tree inventory, drop the ponderosa stuff. I mean, I think it's too late in the game to try to get them to add something that they're actually going to do, but I think they should be thinking about it. So, and it should be broader than just ponderosas. I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Well, it does say include ponderosa pine trees, which is how we got started on this. And I almost feel like this is an action item. So we want to make sure it's actionable.
Mr. Joyce.
Just something else that kind of comes to mind also in the discussion around the tree canopy and trail development. Amongst a lot of friends that I know that are biologists or local educators, science teachers, I often hear them talking about the growing danger of climate being a bigger impact on our urban canopy and also just our forest in general. They're all kind of predicting that in the next 100 years, aspens will struggle to live here because of mites, because of climate change. Same thing with ponderosa, maybe a little bit longer period of time, and then even to Commissioner Cluin's point about the juniper as well. Like, I guess it's really not so much of a question, but more of a comment and curiosity. Like, have we addressed that in any of the conversations already? That the urban planning should definitely take into consideration that from a climate standpoint, which we don't have as much control over at this point, but with climate changing and warming, et cetera, that's going to have an even greater impact on these trees, and therefore it should be top priority that these are preserved. I don't know if anyone else has heard those similar thoughts, but just thought I'd bring that back up.
Thanks, Commissioner Joyce.
That in 100 years will look like cottonwood. A lot of folks have been saying that. I think developing a comprehensive urban forest plan, and that would include an inventory and put up something about a particular or early focus on large ponderosa pine. That's pretty actionable.
Commissioner Wallen.
I bring it up ponderosa pine because really that we have the biggest population of ponderosa pines actually around the world, basically. And I really worry that if it's not really mentioned in these documents, that will be ignored and that will be, that's diminished in coming years. I know Juniper Alligator is a site that's really great, and Aspen also really grow and famous for people, for tourists who come to here to see it, especially when changing the color. But Ponderosa pine is really the one that make it the trademark for Northern Arizona, basically Flagstaff.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your comments. I've been trying to craft a sentence here that is straightforward for an action item, and incorporating everybody's thoughts. Is this closer to the point? Develop a comprehensive tree inventory that adds native tree species, especially or including the ponderosa pine, as a significant natural resource to the mapped resources section in Chapter 7.
What about using the word highlighting instead of especially including? Just say highlighting the ponderosa pine, or the highlighting the mature ponderosa pine, or something like that.
Or highlighting the Ponderosa pines, that's good, because we really have to also thinking about the cluster and different age of the trees. I like that.
It's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's good. Well done.
Okay. I'm gonna delete this upper section and take on the lower section. Oops. Okay. Okay, we're getting close here. All right. This next one is the implementation tools that we recommended. The question that was posed to us is like, okay, what in the code is not good enough? What's the point that we're trying to really make here? We currently receive civic and common space as part of our developments. This may not be, overall, these comments might not be a regional plan issue. And that the thought was that the root cause is not the code, it's like funding for like building out the open space incentive. So, these incentives and recommendations might be better addressed in the last cap report recommendation that I know the Open Spaces Commission was also interested in reviewing. In fact, like some of this language, I think, might have actually been somewhat duplicated in that last cap report review. There was also some thoughts about this should be addressed in the PROS master plan, as far as like what kind of parks and open space we can accept, like from a donation, or we also might need some guidelines for like dedications, so that when we do have a land offer that, we can accept something that makes sense for the open space system. So mapping and highlighting what areas that are important to protect might be important for doing in our master plan. And we could, review our code and figure out how to make it more meaningful and, potentially include that as an action item. But I think there's some thought, like, what's the point that we're really trying to address, and is it better and making this point in another location, like in our last cap report review?
Well, I think part of what we were talking about is, I mean, do I have this wrong? But when it's their comment, the response, maybe you got this from Sarah, is we currently receive civic and common spaces as part of our development. But our concern has been like, well, the civic and common spaces are sometimes the open space where you've put a planter next to a building. And so I thought we were suggesting that within their conversations with developers, that they say, well, there's an incentive, we're going to provide an incentive. We will allow you to do only so many houses per acre as you want if you include public access such as this. I thought that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Thomas. And I kind of think that the comment as far as like developing incentives and density bonuses is about that, and I think that's somewhat clear. Um, if we could make them more clear, we'd be happy to revise it. But I think maybe the second part of the comment or the feedback that we got was that maybe doing that in the regional plan like is really not the appropriate place. Like, um, so just throwing that out there. Commissioner Norton.
Yeah, so the sort of the trickle down effect that I see is like, you know, last cap came about because of the regional plan and codes needing to find solutions, rewrites, revisions to code to get what we want, which the focus right now of last cap is housing and climate goals. And so by us putting these points into the regional plan, it gives that foundational level of, this is what we're looking for, this is what we want, how do we get there? And maybe in the next round, last cap will look at how can we incentivize parks and open space. For instance, we just saw like a the second half of Canyon del Rio's site plan. There's no open space, there's no pocket parks, there's no park in the whole master plan of Canyon del Rio. Now maybe individual developments might put in a little neighborhood playground or something along the way, but it's really left up to the developers. So in order for us to like start the ball rolling of getting these things that are also important to our residents, open space and pocket parks, unless we put it in our regional plan as, I mean, what's the regional plan? It's where our inspiration and goals and policies are put forth into one place. And I think this is a good place to have our points for connectivity and walkability and open space. And we're not going to get those things unless we push a little harder to ask, how do we make this happen? So I still think it's important that we put it in here. I think it'll get diluted a little bit or might lose its priority if we wait for last cap recommendations. I mean, we should still do that, but I think we need to start at the top, which is the regional plan. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner Norton. Commissioner Fox.
I agree. The last cap is much more, to me, implementation strategies. And the last time, my recollection is Sarah asked us for more details, and now they're saying don't add details. So I think we need to put this desire, need, whatever it is for open space here in the regional plan, and then use last cap as a way of making it happen.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner Fox. Okay, so the direction I have for this one is to keep these, but add them as like a type of action under other action items. Does that make sense for it to be underneath this second box category? Okay. All right. That gets us through. Anything that I think we're pretty good. Does anybody want to go back and revisit anything that we talked about? Okay, great.
Wait, can I just confirm, we're leaving in 3 and 14, right? We're leaving in the two that are,
Yes,
that when
Yeah.
we started, okay.
that's the direction that I got, unless anybody wants to go back and discuss that again. Okay, great. The next item is to look at our presentation and make sure that it's representative of like all of the what the commission like to talk about. Just pull that up real quick. So I did my best to try to prepare something that reflected the commission's discussion last time. This is what I wrote here. So I just did some background that Open Spaces Commission is interested in providing a comment and that they've been involved. I'll just go ahead and pause right there and let you read that first section there.
Well, I was going to suggest we delete that.
I think it'll
I'm
be
sure I
important for the commission and council to realize that we have been engaged from the very beginning. I heard a council member ask, like, where did 2,000 people comments come and where were they when we were writing this? Well, I think a lot of people in the public waited to see the plan and then made comments, and we made comments in December and didn't feel that maybe, we waited for the rewrite thinking, okay, they'll implement some our comments, and we saw just maybe a nominal amount of our comments put into the rewrite. So I think it's important to say that, we have been following this. We have attempted to make comments. This is our these are our final comments and why. But I think a little bit of history, if this can be read in 3 minutes time, even whatever revisions we make, great. If we need to cut, we might want to trim here and there. But I think offering some history, because most of the city council people were not part of the early work on this. Only one council member was sitting on the regional plan committee way back in the early writing of it. So a lot of them don't have as much knowledge as maybe even some of us that have read it a couple of times and made these comments all along the way. So just some context.
Like, I guess when I said it could be deleted, I would have thought that is our job to do things diligently, and I didn't realize a lot of people didn't understand that. So I guess in light of the fact you're educating someone, then I'm fine with that particular sentence. I just didn't feel we needed to pat ourselves on the back, but I guess if people think we don't exist or aren't doing anything, maybe we do.
Yeah, thank you both for the comments. I do think that it is important when you go to city council or planning and zoning to have a little bit of a story to tell. And I think this does kind of tell at least a little bit of that part of the story. But I agree that, if you guys have some thought about like how we can make it short and more succinct, we can certainly do that. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down a little bit. This makes 4 points on your recommendation, and the first one is about this kind of overall theme of like integration of open space. It touches on the non-negotiable objectives and how we desire that to be a change. So I'll just pause there and let you read that.
Robert, and the stuff in the italics, is that sort of just some supporting information if council or commissioners were to ask questions of who's ever presenting? Is that the purpose of that?
Yeah, that's the purpose, and I also just didn't know like if the speakers wanted to mention like other specific recommendations that the commission has that is related to this kind of point. Yeah, so not all this needs to be verbatim.
And those numbers are related to they are related exactly to what we've just gone over.
Yeah, the version that I sent to you, of course, now that we've gone through it again, that's going to have to be updated, but yeah, more or less. This is the second point, and about the policy themselves needing balance. The Open Space Commission had a lot of discussion about like including more content about policies and making them more specific to open space. So that's kind of what this particular comment is about.
One comment in your the second sentence, we're recommending a revision to update that policy so that open space is part. So take out the seen as. Please. Oh, is a part of the design.
Thanks. And then this third one is about the regional plan needing some needs to guide development so that it helps deliver things that people value.
And you might broaden that to just say, or that, I mean, who's ever speaking can just say that the community values. I mean, they've had a lot of 2,000 comments apparently.
Okay, and then this last one is about policy number 8 and the discussion that we were kind of having about the corridor between the I-40 wetlands and the Forest Service, because this is the priority corridor for the commission. So obviously based on our comments, like this needs to be changed to like one designation. But just wondering if you have other thoughts.
Maybe you could put in the definition for suburban center in there, because that definition is helpful because it describes like multi-story, high density, urban. I can't remember all the language, but I think having a definition for suburban center would help clarify why we have a concern. I know that they've said that there possibly could be a greenway in there, but when you read it, it doesn't sound like there's a greenway. It sounds exactly like the Aspen Grove development, where I don't know how you stick a greenway in the middle of the Aspen Grove development.
Okay, any feedback? And this is just kind of a more of a guide, I think, to help direct the conversation for whoever who's going to be presenting. I don't think it needs to be verbatim, but I think the commission needs to be on board for whoever's speaking to kind of have these points as like the basis for that discussion.
Well, in the second paragraph to the end, that phrase, our feedback isn't about starting over, I would delete that and just say, so in closing, our feedback is about making targeted changes to the plan that will help as I grow. I don't think we need to answer a question that hasn't been asked. I'm afraid that.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Right, that's good.
Great. All right. Any other thoughts or comments on this particular item?
Just whoever, takes it on for the public hearings, that, it has to be within 3 minutes. So
Yes.
talk
Yeah.
fast.
It's got to be 3 minutes. Yeah. So like,
Practice,
everybody speaks at a
practice.
different speed too. So I think it's okay if the commission agrees that, whoever's speaking can kind of like tune it to like their own style. All right. And the next item I have is like, all right, we need to finalize who's going to speak and when. And I believe Commissioner Thomas said that she would take on September 10th. That's this week. Is that correct, Commissioner Thomas?
Correct. Yes.
Great. Yeah, so we need someone, and that, by the way, is Wednesday. It's Wednesday, It's the Flagstaff Planning and Zoning Commission that we held. That's the first public hearing. And that's at the Flagstaff Aquaplex, I believe, or virtually.
Yeah, it starts at 4, right, Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we've
And
got
is-
go ahead.
And is this the only thing on the agenda? I mean,
That's a good question. I think so. And I know it starts at 4, we're somewhat limited. They'll go as late as the Aquaplex is open, which is what, 7:30, Robert?
Yeah. So,
okay.
um,
Um,
the other items are September 24th, public hearing, city and planning and zoning, Wednesday, September 24th, starting at 4 p.m. at City Hall Council Chambers. We need someone who's available then. And then the last one is October 9th. This is City Council public hearing. And that is Thursday, starting at 3 p.m. at City Council Chambers at City Hall.
And I think we had a brief discussion about having all different people go up and speak would be effective. I think Commissioner Norton recommended that the last time we spoke. I mean,
it doesn't matter. I mean,
someone needs
if
to
you-
go up.
Well,
If you-
we have an open space meeting on the 22nd. I think an agenda item there should be what verbal input would be effective based on this meeting on the 10th. And then maybe we could decide on a group is what should be said on the 24th, and then maybe someone could step forward and say it. But I think we need to see what happens after the 10th before we can.
So the public hearings, basically it's, in essence, it's almost like one public hearing that spans 2 dates and 2 locations. So I think, having, Jackie make the comments on the 10th, and I checked, the public hearing is the only thing on our agenda. So these two meetings for planning and zoning, it's specifically as the public hearing for the regional plan. We'll have already, not only will she speak, but this letter will get emailed to the Regional Plan 45 comments dedicated email. So it'll be in the public record. When it comes to the 24th, it might just be as a quick reiteration. We, on the 10th, we spoke, you've seen our letters, we hope you've read it, we hope you will elevate this to, the parking lot to be considered for adoption, kind of a thing. I think that's how it would go.
Yeah, I guess what I was trying to say is, in response to the 18 points that we present, if at the 10th there was a really strong reaction against one of them, then I think that should be something that should be highlighted on the 24th. And so that I agree we're going to be saying similar things, but the 24th is a chance to provide some feedback if necessary. So that's why I was saying that, suggesting maybe on the 22nd we could discuss how the meeting on the 10th went. See if we just repeat things or if we have to add something new.
Oh, Mary, Commissioner Norton, I think you're turned off.
Sorry, thank you. Adding on to that thought, we might also get a chance to hear what all the other public comments are. If there seems to be some consensus among our concerns with members of the public, other advocacy groups or commissions. These are just kind of things I'm thinking that off the top of my head, might come up, and so that maybe on the 24th, we could reiterate those things that have risen to the top that are still most important to us, that maybe we've also now heard in the public process. I don't know how much of a discussion there'll be. The public hearing is obviously an opportunity for the public to talk and make their comments, but at some point, whether it's Wednesday and or on the 24th, we have to close our public hearing and we have to make a recommendation to city council to, approve the regional plan with conditions. And those conditions would be potentially the comments that we've heard that we have elevated to the parking lot to make into conditions. So if that kind of helps to explain how the process has been explained to us on how it will work.
Okay, well, I don't know if can I make a motion, Robert?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, we can certainly put the regional plan on the agenda in September, but do remember that that's a joint meeting with Parks and Recreation. I think it's still appropriate for them to have kind of a brief update on the regional plan process. So I think that that's applicable to both of the commissions, although the Parks and Rec Commission did decide not to comment on the plan. So if we kept that item to the point, I think that would be, okay if we had that on the next agenda. But that I mean, my understanding is we still are going to need someone, right, for September 24th? Or
Yes. Would
okay.
someone like to step forward and do it?
I can't do the 24th. I'll be out of town, but I will volunteer for the 9th with the city council.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Fox.
And that'd be from 3 o'clock to whenever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes it can be pretty late. So, yeah. Well, should we nominate Commissioner White?
Commissioner White?
He's not, I'll tell you what, I'll be willing to do it if Nat doesn't. He could certainly do a better job, but I'd volunteer for the 24th if I have to, let's put it that way. But if Nat's willing to do it, let's go with Nat. If not, I'll be willing to do it on the 24th.
So let's make a future, next have a quick update on the meeting on our 22nd meeting with Parks and Rec. We will have a 5-minute update on how the meeting on the 9th went, and we will confirm with Nat that he will present on the 24th. And
Fine.
and if that doesn't work out for him, we'll have Commissioner Clulin do it. So how's that?
Yeah, we can certainly ask him if we can keep that meeting, though, the Parks and Rec meeting, to like not have to make decisions at that meeting. I think that might be better because it is a joint meeting. I'm not exactly sure like how that would work because we wouldn't be voting as a double commission. So Commissioner Clune, if you are available for September 24th, I might recommend that we put you down and then keep Commissioner White as a backup, if that's okay with you.
All right, that'll be fine. The only reason I suggested
I'd be happy to be a backup if it's necessary. I'll be traveling the 23rd, so it'll just be probably a long day of catch up and everything on the 24th, but I'd be happy to try and be, I could be the third option.
The only reason I suggested an agenda item on the 22nd is that my comments on the 24th are going to be on behalf of the whole group. And even if we didn't need vote on it, I'd like some feedback. And as I understand, because of open meeting laws, we're not supposed to be talking about things outside a meeting. So I figured the only way I could get some feedback about what the commissioners thought would be important to say on the 24th, if anything, would be if we talked about it on the 22nd. So that's why I wanted at least a couple of minutes to see what people thought about what should be said without any voting on it, but at least I'd have some feedback.
Yep. I think that's doable. Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Norton?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I know you have a motion up on the screen, and I just wanted to make sure that our letter will get emailed to that email address, that dedicated email address that I mentioned as part of the correspondence outreach. So is that how you intend to submit it? I know you said that it goes to the Planning and Zoning, City Council, and the Regional Plan Committee. Is it just going to the email address, or how are you distributing
yes.
it?
I was just going to send it to the email address unless the commission wants to provide some other direction.
Okay, so it'll go to the dedicated Regional Plan 45 comments at flagstaffaz.gov.
Yes.
Okay, great. Only I say that because like as a planning and zoning commissioner, I am receiving emails that get forwarded to us from that dedicated email. So I know that everybody's seeing it, everybody's getting it, and just want to make sure that that's what happens to the commission's letter as well.
That's great. Well, I'll work on finalizing it this week, and you can let me know if you receive it.
Okay. So are you well, I mean, if we had it within our if we have it for the 10th, you probably would need to shoot it off to the email tomorrow. Is that too soon?
No, I'll do it. I'll get it done. Yeah.
That would be ideal. And then Jackie's comments during public comment will support the email that everybody got. So I think that would be the best case scenario.
And then can I make sure that I get a copy of the final revisions and the letter?
Yeah, of course. I'll send it to the entire commission. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So can there be a motion? So
Could I just want to add two words. I'll move and I'll read from this motion, and I'm going to add two letters, and I move that the Open Spaces Commission approve the September 8, 2025 letter of recommendation regarding the draft Flagstaff Regional Land Use Plan 2045 with the identified edits and corrections. The reason for that is if you see a grammatical or syntax, Robert, go ahead and do it. You're now authorized to make corrections, and authorize the staff to transmit the letter on behalf of the commission to the Planning and Zoning Commission, City Council, and the Regional Plan Committee. So
I second it. This is Bruce.
Okay. Chairman, you're going to ask for a vote?
all in favor, say aye.
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 I
Any disapprove? Any discussion? Okay, that motion's approved.
And you got the word and corrections, Robert?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Well, if no one jumps in, I'll move the next one too here. I move that the Open Space Commission approve the presentation summary of the Regional Plan 2024 recommendations with the suggested edits and corrections, and authorize its use by the commissioner designee when presenting to the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council.
Does everyone who approves say aye?
We need
Well,
a
we
second.
need a second.
Oh, we
And
need a
I
second.
second it.
I second
second it.
Oh, okay.
All who approve say aye.
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 Any negatives? Any discussion? Okay, so moved. You're doing a great job. Keep going.
Well, I don't want to
Great.
nominate myself here, so I'll let somebody else do it.
I don't think
Okay.
you need to nominate yourself since you already stepped up. Yeah, I just threw this up there in case we needed it. Yeah, so I think we've got everything taken care of. We've got the recommendation, we've got the presentation, we got somebody for each date, I believe. Yep, so we're good.
Well,
We're good.
Just add to the minutes who the two people are then.
That'd be great. Yep. So the folks would be Jackie Thomas on September 10th. That's this week. Commissioner Bill Gluhan on September 24th, and Commissioner Bruce Fox on October 9th.
Okay.
Nice work, everybody.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
Done,
Thanks so much.
everybody. See you on the 22nd.
Great.
All right.
So,
We just need
thank
to.
you, everybody.
I wanted to mention one item in the information to and from, and that is the bow and arrow agreement is in front of City Council on the 9th. That's tomorrow. So if you're interested in that item, you can tune in, or I believe like some folks will probably speak to that item since it allows for the release of water at Fisher Canyon. So just a heads up. Any other items for the to and from?
Hey, thanks for all that work, Robert. You're under the gun and you're doing a yeoman's job. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
You bet.
awesome.
Yep.
All right, I guess we're ready to adjourn.
Okay.
All right. Let's
Good
adjourn.
All right, bye.
All right.
Bye.
All right.
Have a
All
good
right.
night,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Good job and all that preparation to make it happen.
Oh, thanks.